Hello everyone, I'm Yumu from Susan's family. Today, I'm bringing you a cutie flower bag, the bear style. For the charts of this project, please search for our website by the keyword en.susuddiy.com. This bag is divided into the main piece, the zipper, the limbs, the facial features, decorations and the strap. First, let's crochet the main piece. We will start with the foundation chain. For section 1, we work the rounds back and forth. After that, divide it into 2 parts and work back and forth. As we go, we'll incorporate the grid board. Before we start, let's get to know the chart. In the chart, our ND plus number indicates the round number. Our plus number indicates the row number. The stitch instructions column shows the stitches needed for the current round, including any increases or decreases. The total stitches column shows the total number of stitches for the current round when it's complete. The stitch techniques we'll be using include X for single crochet, V for SC 2 in 1, W for SC 3 in 1, K for skipping stitch, CH for chain, and SL for slip stitch. I'll show you in detail. Now, make a foundation chain. Take up the required yarn. To make it easier to see, I use random colors for the sample. For specific yarn details, color schemes and hook sizes, please refer to the detail page and pattern charts for this project. Our ND1 says 24CH for the very first, meaning we start with the foundation chain, which contains 24 chains. Start by a slip knot. And chain. 1 braid represents 1 stitch. The foundation chain is complete. Now we'll crochet round 1. Our ND1 says, second CH from the hook, V21X, W22X. Second CH from the hook means to start working from the second stitch from the hook. Count back from the hook side. 1, 2. This is the second chain from the hook. Now work 1 SC2 in 1, which means to work 2 single crochets in the same spot. Work into the back loop of the chain. And there you have your SC2 in 1. Go on to work into the back loops to make single crochets, one by one. The number before the stitch symbol indicates how many of that stitch you should crochet. Here 21 single crochets are needed. After that, you see 1 SC3 in 1 in the chart, meaning to make 3 single crochet in this remaining chain. One SC3 in 1 is complete. Let's take a look. On the other side of the chain, there are 2 remaining strands. Continue working in these 2 strands. Rotate the fabric clockwise by half a turn. Start in the 2 remaining strands of the second chain. Work 22 single crochets evenly. You see, this is the first chain. We should start working in the one on its left. When crocheting, place the starting tail above the hook. Weave it in as you go. You can see single crochets on this side are symmetrical to the ones on the other side. 2 stitches are worked into one spot. Check the stitch count now. The stitch count for each round are noted in the chart. I'll leave out this cliché from here on. Now, slip stitch into the first single crochet. Insert the big braid in the beginning. The slip stitch isn't shown in the chart. When crocheting, always finish a round with a slip stitch. This is the chain formed by the slip stitch. The joining slip stitch doesn't count as a stitch. It needs to be tightened. That completes round 1. Consider the side with clearer texture as the right side. Any remaining tail can be trimmed. Now move on to round 2. Chain 1 as the beginning chain for the single crochet. This beginning chain isn't shown in the chart. But actually, we always begin a round with one beginning chain. The beginning chain for the single crochet doesn't count as one stitch. Turn means to turn the piece counterclockwise. This round is worked on the wrong side. Locate the first stitch from the previous round and make one SC2 in 1 in it. I mean this stitch. The small braid on the left is the slip stitch from the previous round. This braid is the beginning chain. Pay attention not to work in the wrong position. Note that the stitches are on the upper left when working on the wrong side. For the following 21 stitches, make 1 single crochet each. After that, work 3 SC2 in 1. Now, work more single crochets evenly. And 2 more SC2 in 1. Work the last stitch into the entry point of slip stitch from the previous round. Then slip stitch into the first stitch. Remember, end every round with a slip stitch into the first stitch. And tighten. That completes round 2. Moving on to round 3. Chain 1 as beginning chain. I'll emphasize again, always begin a round with a beginning chain. I'll leave out this cliché from here on, and turn your piece before start crocheting back and forth. I'll leave out this cliché from here on. Now, X, V, times 2. The parentheses indicate a group of stitches. Times 2 means to repeat the group 2 times. Work 1 single crochet and 1 SC2 in 1. And that completes the XV group. Let's do this again. Make 1 single crochet and 1 SC2 in 1. That's the second group. Now, crochet the required number of single crochets according to the chart. Here, we have XV times 3. So, work the XV group 3 times. After that, keep going with the required number of single crochets. Finish with 1 SC2 in 1. And slip stitch to finish. Pull tight. This completes round 3. Continue with round 4. Chain 1 as beginning chain. Turn your work. Then follow the chart to crochet the corresponding stitches. Finish with a slip stitch. Round 4 is completed. You can take a look. The right side of the fabric has a clear texture, while the wrong side appears blurry. Count these raised textures from the foundation chain. 1, 2, 3, 4. We've now worked 4 rounds. That's how we count rounds when crocheting back and forth. For rounds 5 to 6. Keep following the chart and work the rounds back and forth. Always start a round with 1 chain as the beginning chain. And don't forget to turn your work. And finish with a slip stitch and pulling tight. Please follow the previous video to finish these rounds. After round 6, cut the grid board. There's a video about how to do it. Let's have a look. Lay the fabric on the grid board. Align the borders. Cut a piece of waste yarn and thread the needle. Fix the fabric roughly in place. And make sure the fabric lies flat as you go. Then, carefully cut along the border on the grid board. Be careful not to cut the yarn. At the curve, trim slightly beyond the fabric. Smooth out the board as much as possible. Now, remove the yarn. The grid board is now prepared. Set it aside for later use. After trimming the grid board, continue crocheting the remaining rounds of section 1 following the chart. The word evenly means to work one single crochet for each stitch. The stitch techniques needed have been shown before. Please follow the chart to crochet the corresponding stitches. To make it easier to sew, sew the grid board onto the bottom of the main piece after round 12. With the right side of the main piece facing out, which means the side with the clearer texture of round 1. There's a video about how to do it. Note that we use a sample in the video. The round number and the texture mentioned are not for this project. You should check the chart for actual data and focus on the technique here. Let's have a look at the video. After round 21, I'll show you how to sew on the grid board with this sample. Cut a piece yarn in the color of the main piece, about 50 centimeters. Thread the needle. Place the grid board with the raised texture facing up. Put it in the main piece. Align with the first 6 rounds. First, secure the center of the grid panel to the starting point. Tie a knot at one end of the panel. Then sew it on. Adjust the position as you go. The segments on the fabric should be very short. And pulled tight. Try not to show sewing trace on the surface. After the middle part, sew the stitches from round 6 to the board along the border. Go through below the front loops. And try to pass through complete squares on the panel. Sew a whole round, and sew a few more stitches to secure any loose point. Finish by tying a knot. Weave the tail in along the texture. By a few more stitches, trim the excess. Fasten off the starting tail as well. It won't be difficult for you. And there, the grid board is put on. After that, finish the remaining rounds of section 1 following the chart. Let's crochet the second to last round together. Firstly, work following the chart. After completing the corresponding single crochets, skip one stitch. Continue crocheting. For the skipped stitch, just crochet like this. Finish this round. At the end, skip one stitch here. And finish with a slip stitch. The second to last round is complete. For the last round, just work single crochets evenly. It won't be difficult for you. Now deal with the tail. Enlarge the loop. Pass the skin or whole piece through the loop. Pull tight. That concludes section 1. Move on to section 2. Start by carrying the yarn across. Find the second stitch of the last round from section 1. Draw the yarn through. Locate the second stitch on the left of joining point. Check if it's in the middle of this side. If there's a significant deviation, adjust according to the actual situation. Locate the midpoint of this side. Here the midpoint is between 2 stitches. Count 2 stitches towards the flanks and mark there separately. Do the same on the other side. There should be 4 stitches between the 2 marks. The stitch counts between these 2 makers and in the middle on both sides should be identical? If not, make adjustments. The marked spots are where you'll crochet section 2 and 3. Once you've determined the positions, draw the yarn through from the marked position on the left side. For the sample, it's still at the original position. Make sure the carried yarn lies flat against the fabric. Start with chain 1. Turn the work. Work 1 single crochet at the joining point. And continue to work 1 single crochet for each stitch. Weave in the carried yarn as you go. Crochet until the corresponding position on the other side. Row 1 is completed. You can check the stitch count. Leave the remaining stitches unworked for now. Continue to crochet row 2. Chain 1 as your beginning chain. Turn your work. Then follow the chart to crochet the corresponding stitches. Start by skipping 1 stitch. After the last stitch, you've just finished the stitches from the previous row. Row 2 is done. For the following row 3 to 11, continue to crochet back and forth like this. It won't be difficult for you. Let's work on row 12. Now, chain 1 as your beginning chain. Turn your work. Begin by skipping 1 stitch. Work 1 slip stitch. For the non-joining slip stitch here, don't tighten it, but count it as 1 stitch. Work another slip stitch. Then crochet the corresponding number of single crochets. Finish with 1 slip stitch. Leave the remaining stitches unworked. Row 12 is done. Continue with row 13. Slightly enlarge the loop. Chain 1 as your beginning chain. Skip the slip stitch. Crochet the corresponding number of single crochets. Now, row 13 is done. The remaining stitches is also left unworked. Continue working back and forth for the following rows. Pay attention to skipping stitches at the beginning and end according to the chart. Check the stitch counts for each row. It won't be difficult for you. After that, fasten off the yarn. Chain 1 to secure. Enlarge the loop. Leave a 5 cm tail and cut. Pull tight. That's how you fasten off the yarn. We'll make an edging on the border of section 2. Now find the entry point on the right of first row. See the stitch on its right? Join the yarn here. And chain 1 as beginning chain. You can see that there are gaps between rows. Work single crochets evenly into the gaps like that for the row sides. And weave in the tail as you go. For a better curve on the border, you can adjust the entry positions as needed to ensuring a smooth edging. For the skipped stitch, work into the stitches. For the slip stitches, work into the braids. For the dents like these, slightly enlarge the loops and fulfill them. We don't want any noticeable gaps. For stitches, work single crochets into the stitches. Weave in the tail as you go. After the last gap, at the joining point below, slip stitch into the next stitch. And do not pull it tight. Enlarge the loop, leave a 5 cm tail and cut the yarn. Hook the tail to the wrong side. Pull tight. Weave it in following the texture. With a few more stitches. And that completes the edging. Section 2 is also done. Continue with section 3. For row 1, work it on the wrong side, just as the first row of section 2. Follow the chart and crochet until the marked spot on the left side. Join the yarn at the marked spot. Follow the chart and crochet until the marked spot on the left side. Tuck the tail inside and weaving it in. When done, check the stitch count. Row 1 is completed. The following rows are the same as the corresponding position from section 2. Please follow the chart to complete them. Fasten off and crochet the edging just as before. Secure the tail. After that, on flanks of the opening, 2 stitches are left respectively. This completes the main piece. Now, sew the zipper onto the opening of section 2 and 3. There's a video about how to do it. We use the sewing thread for the actual project. And try to hiding the sewing stitches. Let's look at the video. Now sew on the zipper. I'll sew the zipper on for this sample. Cut a long piece of sewing thread. Thread the needle. Fold the tail and tie a knot. Set it aside for later use. Before sewing, let's take a look at the zipper. When zipped up, we call the end with the zipper head the top stop, and the other end the bottom stop. These are the tapes, with the zipper chain laying along. With the opening facing you, choose the end you want the zipper head to be on. And position the bottom stop on one side of the opening. Make sure the zipper head faces upward. Double check the arrangement. You can align the length of the zipper first. And leave roughly the same excess on both ends of the zipper. Fix the bottom stop on the opening. Try not to show any sewing traces on the surface. The extra bottom stop should also be fixed. The extra bottom stop should also be fixed. Once the bottom stop is fixed, open the zipper. Align the opening edge roughly with the zipper chain. Then, start sewing this side of the tape. Sew along the border stitches from the main part. Gently tighten. Try not to show any sewing traces on the surface. Sew with small stitches. For a better security. As you sew, adjust the zipper and the fabric. To align the zipper teeth with the opening edge. And prevent the opening from shrinking. You don't want any puckering or pulling of the fabric. Continue sewing this way. Make an extra stitch at the end to secure. Sew all the way to the opposite end. Zip up. Sew a few stitches to attach both top stops to the fabric. Make sure the center of the zipper aligns with this open space. The zipper head should be facing outward, not tucked in. Once secured, you can sew the excess zipper a bit more to the fabric. Or leave a small gap and trim off the extra. It's up to you. If your tail is still long, go back and make more stitches to secure the zipper better. When done, tie off the tails neatly. And just like that, one side of the zipper is attached. Do the same for the other side. Remember to zip up as you sew, and adjust the position as needed. Make sure the tapes lay evenly. You don't want the fabric puckering or pulling. Just keep it neat and tidy. It won't be difficult for you. As you can see, this sample has had the zipper sewn on. That's all about the zipper.